So we kind of wanted to give you a scenario of a producer and how they could enhance their management in their herd. So let's say that you have a heifer rearing ranch that has about 1,000 breeding heifers, and they're going to be in a dry lot facility in the High Plains region, which is actually some of the weather is pretty similar to where you're at in the southern Idaho, where the dairies are at. But currently they're using a pre-sync protocol, and they're giving one luteolized shot when heifers reach 12 months of age, but they aren't currently using body weight to determine when to be bred. They're only using age. And then 14 days later, they give a second lute shot and breed based off heat, or 3 days later if no heat has occurred.
Okay. So, very common for producers to identify animals for the AI program based on age.
Mhm.
That's very common. I would argue that if we can, we'd want to add another criteria. And I know weight is very, very hard to do. Not everyone has a scale that they can run heifers over. I get that. But we can measure wither height in a sample of animals that are in lockups in the morning. We can also look at hip height, and we can use a hip stick to do those things. And there are recommendations that are freely available on the internet on how to do that. But getting specifically to your question, if our trigger is 12 months, then, and if we're going to use that age as the 12 months, what I would recommend is we would want to give that first injection on average 2 weeks prior to that 12-month eligibility. So we're working to the left-hand side, if you will, kind of in the immediate pre-breeding period, like in the voluntary waiting period for a lactating cow. So on day of eligibility, let's say that we load heifers into the AI pen, or they become eligible on a Monday, just to make the conversation easy. That would be the day that you would give the second luteolized or prostaglandin injection. And the expectation there, with good heat detection, if we're applying tail paint, and if we're identifying estrus once daily in the morning, with 2 shots of prostaglandin in healthy post-pubertal animals, greater than 90% of those animals should show a sign of heat. So the label says freely, you're looking at 3 to 5 days, 3 to 6 days for most of those animals before they come into heat. So we're going to need to be good at identifying those animals in estrus.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's say the same heifer rearing ranch. So they have, really great pregnancy rates, let's say 55 or 65. But in the summer, they drop to like 30%, and they notice that they've lost a lot of estrus expression. And let's say that just happened like this year. So in your opinion, what questions should these producers be asking, and some of the factors that you think would be contributing? Okay.
So I think let's go to kind of a foundational aspect of this. If we can look at heifer reproduction in a variety of ways. One way to get kind of a spot check would be first service conception rate, or pregnancy per AI at first service. And we need to understand the difference between heavy use of sex semen and the expectation, and conventional semen. And I recognize that many producers are using sex semen very heavily, but there still is this relationship. So on average, sex semen will provide us about 85 to 90% of our conventional semen fertility. So if we are at, let's say, 60% for conventional semen fertility in our heifers, during the times of years where we're not having, or during the seasons we're not having any heat stress or anything, then we would say that our expectation would be 90% of that for sex semen, if you want to make the math easy, or 85% of that. So that would be the first thing. And that's going to be year round. Sex semen is just a different product, a very good product. It has been proven to work, but we need to have our eyes open in what our expectations are. On the other hand, if we're looking at longer period of time, and we're looking at 21-day pregnancy rates in heifers, and we can do that for heifer ranches or for heifer growers or the enterprise within a dairy, we can do that. We're looking, hopefully, at greater than 40% 21-day preg rates is what we're looking for if we're following Dairy Calf and Heifer Association gold standards, and that's really where we need to be. Now, if we notice on either first service or in a 21-day pregnancy rate, we notice a drop during the summer, this is getting to the question specifically, what might be some of the things impacting that? One of the first things is going to be heat stress, of course. Heat stress is real. It's real in heifers. It's real in cows. And we should expect to see more subtle signs of estrus. So with a paint system or a chalk system, if we're applying it diligently every day to every animal, it's entirely possible we will not see full rubs. In other words, 100% of the chalk or paint removed from the animal when she's in heat. It's going to be more common to see partial rubs or half rubs where we have 40% or 60% still on the tail head. And this is where the decision tree, that I call it a decision tree for identifying animals in heat, comes in. This is where you would want to look at other secondary signs. You would want to look at color and or size of the vulva, because we know when the animal is in estrus, the impact of estrogen causes a little more color, a little more pink color, if you will, and a little tiny bit increased in size. Also, mucus. Is there mucus, clear mucus stuck to the thighs or the tail of that animal? We can put a sleeve on and we can go in and from the cervix back to the vagina, try and see if we can remove some clear mucus. All of these types of things can help us decide if this animal's in heat. It is a problem when we have animals that show lesser signs, but the key is these animals are still in heat. It's just they're modifying their activity based on it's 110 degrees and it's not it's really not a good thing to be jumping on each other at that time.